from the Presidential Palace, Manila. Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has arrived in New York for a series of engagements at the United Nations, where he is expected to push for peace amid rising tensions in the Middle East and champion women's rights and empowerment. The presidential plane touched down at Newark Liberty International Airport around 2 Sunday afternoon, New York time. President Marcos's two-day working visit from March 9th to the 10th includes a meeting with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and several speaking engagements at the UN headquarters. He is set to underscore the Philippines' commitment to multilateralism and international cooperation. The President will address the 70th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, where he is expected to highlight the country's efforts to advance and protect the rights of women and girls. He will also speak at the special plenary meeting of the UN General Assembly to rally support for the Philippines' bid for a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council for 2027 to 2028. President Marcos is the fifth world leader to hold a special session since 2024. The Philippine president is likewise expected to discuss the situation in the Middle East with Guterres and reaffirm the Philippines' support for the UN and a rules-based international order. His visit comes as conflicts in the region continue to escalate, making his participation crucial in amplifying calls for peace and civilian protection. The chief executive will also hold several business meetings on the sidelines of his UN engagements. Traveling with the president are First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos, Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro, Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak, Presidential Peace Advisor Carlito Galvez Jr., and Presidential Communications Office Acting Secretary Dave Gomez.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is honoring Filipino women as the world marks International Women's Day, highlighting their central role in nation building and reaffirming his administration's commitment to expand opportunities and protect their rights. In a message posted Sunday, the president praised the many roles women take on every day, at home, in the workplace, and in public service. President Marcos said the progress of the nation will always carry the imprint of the Filipina, adding that women deserve a government that works just as hard as they do. The chief executive vowed continued support for programs that empower women and ensure access to essential services, including health, education, and livelihood assistance. International Women's Day is celebrated every March 8th to recognize women's achievements and advance the push for gender equality. In the Philippines, the entire month of March is observed as National Women's Month.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will formally ask Congress to grant him emergency powers to reduce excise taxes on petroleum products as global oil prices surge amid the crisis in the Middle East. Malacañang confirmed the move on Sunday, New York time. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the Department of Energy, or DOE, will submit the President's request to Congress on Monday. President Marcos earlier said he is considering the temporary tax cut if global oil prices hit or exceed $80 per barrel. Any adjustment, however, would still require congressional approval. The President is also pushing amendments to the Biofuels Act to allow the use of cheaper bioethanol as part of efforts to cushion the impact of rising fuel costs triggered by tensions in the Gulf region. President Marcos Jr. has already warned consumers to brace for steep price hikes, projecting increases of 7 pesos and 48 centavos per liter for gasoline, 17 pesos and 28 centavos for diesel, and 32 pesos and 35 centavos for kerosene.
Dateline Malacañang.
In a related story, Malacañang is warning gasoline stations against imposing unreasonable price increases, saying violators may face sanctions as the government intensifies monitoring amid the Middle East crisis. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the Department of Energy, or DOE, has issued show cause orders to 54 gas stations to determine whether they ignored government warnings against raising pump prices. Castro said authorities are now verifying reports of sudden price hikes, stressing that stations found to have committed fraudulent acts could face penalties, including the possible cancellation of their permits. She added that the DOE is coordinating closely with fuel retailers to prevent price manipulation and ensure fair business practices as global oil prices continue to surge. The palace reiterated President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s call for unity, warning businesses not to exploit the situation. Castro said those who take advantage of the crisis may face lawsuits and other penalties.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang says now is the right time for the Philippines to push for a non-permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council, or UNSC, stressing that the move advances national, regional, and global interests. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said securing a seat would give the Philippines a stronger voice in international peace and security decisions and reinforce its credibility as a peace-advocating nation. Castro expressed disappointment over critics questioning the country's bid, saying the Philippines should seize this moment to show it is deserving of a seat on the council. She added that the campaign would allow the country to help shape global agendas and participate more meaningfully in decisions affecting peace and security. Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, echoed the sentiment, saying a UNSC seat, even on a temporary basis, would give the Philippines greater influence in addressing global challenges, including rising tensions in the Middle East. The Philippines is campaigning for a non-permanent seat for the 2027 to 2028 term, highlighting its legacy as a UN founding member and its long-standing commitment to diplomacy and international law. Elections for the seat are scheduled for June 2026, with the Philippines expected to compete against Kyrgyzstan for the Asia-Pacific slot.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang is dismissing as baseless Vice President Sara Duterte's recent remarks criticizing the government's repatriation efforts amid the Middle East crisis. Duterte earlier claimed it was too easy to send planes for repatriation and cited friends who were able to return from Dubai despite an airspace closure. She also alleged that many overseas Filipinos refused to come home due to a lack of jobs under the Marcos administration. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the Vice President's comments show a misunderstanding of government procedures and the realities on the ground. Castro stressed that responsible leadership requires decisions based on facts, not isolated anecdotes or hearsay. She warned that relying on personal stories or social media chatter could lead to poor policy making. She added that government actions during the crisis are guided by data, coordination with international partners, and the needs of affected Filipinos, not political narratives. Castro reiterated that decisions must be made for the good of the entire nation, not shaped by speculation or unverified claims.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang says the removal of Caloocan Representative Edgar Erice as Senior Deputy Minority Leader was driven by his own bloc's loss of confidence, not by pressure from the administration. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said Erice has been blaming everyone but himself, noting that it was his own group within the minority that withdrew support. Castro said internal differences in beliefs and objectives likely led to his replacement, adding that the decision reflects the dynamics within the minority bloc, which includes lawmakers critical of the administration. She stressed there was no directive from President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. or on any government official to remove Erice from his post. Castro said Erice's claim that House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos pushed for his ouster is unfounded, emphasizing that the move came from within the minority itself. She added that the situation underscores the importance of leaders making decisions based on principles and group consensus, not on accusations aimed at the administration.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is urging all government offices to fully recognize and integrate digital documents as part of the administration's push to streamline public services through digitalization. In his latest vlog, the president said agencies must embed digital services into their daily operations to make transactions faster and more convenient for the public. His remarks come after the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, rolled out its new e-certificate service, allowing Filipinos to request digital copies of birth, marriage, and other civil registry records online. President Marcos stressed that these digital documents must be accepted across all government offices for the system to be truly useful. He said digitalization should help eliminate long lines and reduce bureaucratic delays. The chief executive added that many eGov.ph services are already available and only need to be fully integrated into agency workflows. However, President Marcos noted that some processes will still require physical appearance to prevent fraud, citing recent controversies involving fraudulent birth registrations. He also acknowledged public calls to simplify document correction procedures and improve access to IDs, especially for marginalized communities. The president said the government continues to expand digital services under the eGov program, while the PSA and other agencies work to streamline the issuance of civil registry documents and national IDs.
Itong nakaraang linggo lang, sa pamamagitan ng PSA o Philippine Statistics Authority, meron na tayong PSA e-certificate service. Dito na kayo makakapag-apply ng digital copy ng inyong birth certificate, marriage certificate at iba pang mga dokumento. Dapat ay kasama na ng PSA ang ganitong serbisyo. At kung magre-request ng physical copy, ay dapat naman sa kahit saang branch ng PSA, pwede nang tungkunin. Ang mahalagang bahagi rin dito ay dapat i-recognize o dapat tanggapin ang mga digital document ng lahat ng opisina sa ating bansa. Dapat ito kilalanin ng bawat government office upang maging kapaki-pakinabang ito. Kung tutuusin, marami na tayong serbisyo sa eGov na kailangan lang fully ma-integrate sa workflow ng iba't ibang opisina. We need to be open in integrating so our digitization program can succeed. But having said that, kailangan natin intindihin na ang physical appearance sa ibang proseso ay hindi natin maisawalang bahala para hindi tayo malusutan ng fraudulent birth registration. Nakita naman ninyo ang nangyari kay Alice Go. At yan, exactly, ganyan ang nangyari. Fraudulent birth registration, ayaw natin naman masama sa ganyan.
R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is urging local governments to study the use of digital payment systems for distributing government assistance, while reminding officials that aid programs must not be used for political self-promotion. In his latest vlog, the president responded to public calls for faster and more convenient distribution of benefits, especially for senior citizens and other vulnerable groups. President Marcos stressed that speeches and publicity stunts have no place in national government programs, noting that existing rules from the Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG and the General Appropriations Act or GAA already prohibit such practices. The chief executive said the government is now exploring digital options to speed up the release of assistance, including the use of virtual wallets like GCash, an approach already being studied by some local governments such as Makati City. President Marcos Jr. encouraged local government units or LGUs to review these models and gradually adopt similar systems to improve efficiency. President Marcos added that aid funded by the national government should be delivered quickly and without unnecessary delays or political grandstanding.
Alam nyo po, basta't ito ay mga programa ng national government, ang mga speech at iba pang pang-epal bago ng distribution, hindi na po pwede yan. Hindi pwedeng gamitin ang government services sa pamumulitika o pagpopromote ng sarili. Nakasaad na po ito sa DILG Memorandum Circular at kabilang rin sa provision ng GAA kung paano dapat gamitin ang pondo ng bayan. Bawal na po sa distribution ng tulong na nanggaling sa national government. Sa distribution naman, pinapag-usapan na ang pag-digitize ng proseso. Baka pwedeng GCash. May ibang mga LGU na gaya ng Makati na sinusubukan na ang ganitong sistema. Dapat tignan pa rin ng mga local government unit ang modelong ito. Aralin ang sistema at unti-unting maimplementa. Basta sa national government nang galing yan, mabilis na. Hindi ka na kailangan makinig sa mahabang speech ng mga politiko.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has expressed solidarity with the United Arab Emirates and hopes for a peaceful resolution to rising tensions in the Gulf region. According to the Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, President Marcos conveyed his support during a phone call with UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The president also expressed confidence in the UAE's ability to protect its citizens and the nearly 1 million Filipinos living and working there. President Marcos said he hopes hostilities will end soon and that the situation will return to normal. The UAE has reported several missile and drone incidents across its territory as Iran targets U.S. military assets in response to joint U.S.-Israel attacks.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Malacañang is ordering all government agencies to strictly enforce energy conservation measures as geopolitical tensions in the Middle East continue to drive up global fuel prices. The directive is contained in Memorandum Circular or MC number 114, signed by Executive Secretary Ralph Recto, which cites the volatility in global energy markets and its impact on the Philippine economy. The order instructs all national government agencies and government-owned or controlled corporations or GOCCs to accelerate the implementation of the Government Energy Management Program. Among the required measures, maintaining a 24 degrees Celsius thermostat setting in air-conditioned offices, activating sleep modes on equipment, and switching off non-essential lights and electronics during lunch breaks and after office hours. Agencies are also told to maximize virtual meetings, limit official travel to essential activities, strengthen fuel-saving protocols for government vehicles, and minimize elevator use. To further cut energy consumption, the circular directs agencies to adopt a 4-day on-site work arrangement, either through a compressed work week or a designated work-from-home day, consistent with Civil Service Commission rules. The arrangement takes effect March 9th and will remain in place until lifted by the President. Malacañang emphasized that all conservation measures must be implemented without disrupting the delivery of public services. MC 114 takes effect immediately.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.